Hi, this is Chris Smith with Local Joe's. At Local Joe's, we help local business. Hi, this is Chris Smith with Local Joe's.
This is City Pulse Newsmakers, a weekly look at the issues and the people behind them in Greater Lansing. Brought to you by City Pulse, Lansing's weekly alternative newspaper. And now, here's your host, City Pulse publisher, Burl Schwartz.
Good morning and welcome to City Pulse Newsmakers. My name's Todd Haywood and I'm a reporter for the City Pulse. I'm stepping in for Burl Schwartz, our publisher today. Joining us today is Melissa Kwan-Huber from the Lansing Neighborhood Council, Elaine Wambach from Rejuvenating South Lansing, and Betty Dreher from the Baker-Denora Neighborhood Association. Today we're going to talk about neighborhoods and what do we need, how are they working, and that sort of stuff. And this is all based on the fact that on March 22nd, Verge Bernero, in his State of the City address, called for a block-by-block assessment of every neighborhood in the community and developing neighborhood-specific plans about what do we need and how do we get there. So we thought we'd have you all in to have that conversation, and we'll start, first of all, with what are the assets in our neighborhoods right now? And Melissa, you want to take that?
Sure. Well, I'm going to say that we have an embarrassment of riches in our people that we have in our neighborhoods. We have people who are invested, who are willing to go out of their way, excuse me, to make their neighborhoods a better place. They bring such a diverse array of skill sets and backgrounds and experiences. You know, that's one of the reasons why we chose to live in Lansing, is because of that. So we have a lot of people from whom we can draw on when we need to do initiatives or the work. That would be, I'd say, the number one asset that we have in our city neighborhoods.
And Elaine, what do you see as the strongest asset right now?
Well, I think that, as Melissa has stated, there's some remarkable people who are very proud of where they live and they care about their neighborhood. One of the things that with Rejuvenating South Lansing, we have several neighborhood leaders that comes to our meetings, and we get a chance to hear what they are doing in their area, or if they had any problems, how they work through it. And I think the mayor should listen to the neighborhood leaders and the neighborhood people, because every neighborhood is unique. I mean, even in a neighborhood association, there may be something happening on one street, but a street over, they don't have that problem. So with having a neighborhood association, they can come together and work together. And I truly believe in the various neighborhood watches, neighborhood association, and we are finding at Rejuvenating South Lansing, we are getting several people that don't belong to either, but they want to have ownership in their neighborhood, and that's exciting to me.
Okay. Betty, what are you seeing as an asset?
Baker neighborhood is unique, maybe from a lot of other neighborhoods. We are 75% rental, but the 25% home ownership in our neighborhood are second, third, and fourth generations of families that go back really to when the neighborhood was built in the early 1900s. Our neighborhood was built because of Rio Motor Car and the John Bean Manufacturing. All of those people that came into Lansing at that time needed homes, and they literally were clearing spots and building houses. So we have a strong, though we have a high rental, we have a very, very strong group of people that, like I said, second, third, and fourth generations are buying their parents' home and their grandparents' home, which is really our anchor. We also have, along the entire perimeter of the Baker neighborhood, are many successful small businesses. We have doctor's offices and clinics and gas stations and restaurants in the perimeter of the neighborhood.
Okay, so small business and people, again, for your neighborhood.
People, right.
So sort of shifting this a little bit and flipping it, and we'll go back this way, what are the weaknesses that we're seeing in the neighborhoods?
We have weaknesses, and I'll go back to the 75% rental housing in my neighborhood, which has grown from about 60% in the last 6 years to 75%. Clearly, our weaknesses are, housing that needs to be improved. We need to work with our landlords and get these people in safe, healthy housing. Some facts about Baker neighborhood is I have 23% of the kids in my neighborhood, or I should say people, adults and kids in my neighborhood, have less than a 9th grade education. There's another 15% that have had some high school, no graduation. So we're looking at a 38 to 40% in that neighborhood that either have less than 9th grade or some high school. It's really disturbing, and it is decreasing, or I should say those numbers are increasing, which means we have more people every year. Every year. We have to do something with the kids in our neighborhood to get through school and graduate. And as far as adults, we need some GED. But those are pretty disturbing numbers, and we've got about a 45% population less than the poverty level,
Okay,
which we could go back to education and various
Right.
things for that.
right. Elaine, what are you seeing as the weaknesses in the neighborhoods?
I'm going to speak to our neighborhood, and then I'll speak to Rejuvenating South Lansing.
Okay, which neighborhood are you talking about?
I'm
then?
talking about the Tressa Drive neighborhood. It's just a dead-end street, but many of it only has 14 houses on it. Most of the people have lived there bought their home in the 60s and have been there. One of the things that we have a frustration with is there are ordinances in place, but they're not being enforced. We have code compliance people that we don't have enough on hand to help take care of the issues that we're bringing to their attention. And I'm going to switch to Rejuvenating South Lansing now. Our group was very concerned on the image that was happening around South Lansing with the donation bins and all the dumping and everything that was taking place. So the whole group took it upon themselves to work on an ordinance to protect the image and also keep safety in mind without having all this debris dumped. It took us a year to get the ordinance created and passed. And now we have an ordinance that is very good, but it's not being enforced. The dumpsters again, or the containers, they have junk all around them, and we keep putting in the complaints. I don't believe they have enough people working in code compliance because they have such a vast amount of home inspections, grass, and everything else. But it looks terrible when somebody's driving down MLK or Cedar Street or Holmes and you see all this junk around. It just changes the image completely. And I think there's other ordinances that we have, and if you're working on a bare minimum staff or less than that you're playing catch-22, and there's things that we need to do that can be done in the administration to help the neighborhoods. Because we've had people go right out and pick up all this stuff at their own expense and time just to get it cleaned up so it has a high standard like we all want to live in.
Okay. Melissa, what are you seeing as weaknesses?
Well, I'm going to say there are a number of challenges across the city. As like we said, that there's a lot of differences between neighborhoods, and each neighborhood has unique challenges. For some, it may be traffic calming. That might be the biggest issue for them. For others, it could be we are dealing with gunshots in the evening on the weekend. So the severity and the range differs, but they're all really important in that. I would say one of the things that probably is unique across the city, though, is our physical infrastructure. We know from our past experience in our various neighborhoods that the sidewalks are crumbling pretty much everywhere. So we all have that issue. We have to figure out a way to deal with that. And speaking of the sidewalks, when we have issues like this last winter, we now have our ordinance that requires us to shovel the sidewalks, which is very important for our safety. But yet we've got this aging population, and we're trying to serve this need based on volunteers, having people go out and volunteer to shovel the walks for people who cannot, and we're having fewer and fewer people to volunteer and do the work for a greater and greater need. So we need to be thinking very strategically about how we share that need as a community and as a city. The other thing that I think is pervasive across the city is the fact that we've got, depending on your zip code, we're between 43 and 49% of our mortgages are underwater. So when you're in that kind of situation, you have a lot of deferred maintenance, you're not able to take out a loan to fix the things that you need to fix. We've got a lot of broken stuff sit in our homes, in our infrastructure that's around us, so we need to figure out a way to deal with that. And I'm not sure exactly how that situation scenario fits into the fact that we're continuing to maybe build new housing in other parts of our city that are outside of a lot of our neighborhoods. So we need to think about a coordinated strategy and how that impacts us in the neighborhoods when we're building these brand new homes out here, and we've got vacant homes in our neighborhoods where people either have to, if they have the ability to leave or to walk away from a mortgage, or if they have the money to be able to repair the house, to be able to bring it up to code, to be able to rent it. There's also a lot of unregistered rentals that we see because of this situation. So that's something we definitely need to work on together. And then the other kinds of infrastructure things that I think of citywide are the fact that we know that we have a struggling situation with our schools. And teachers are my heroes. They go in every day to see unmet needs that our students have and do their very best to do that. But we know that we have an issue that those new houses that we're building, other places that might attract our younger folks to come in here, they likely aren't going to stay here when their children reach school age. They're going to leave. So the best practices in community economic development right now are saying that we really need to focus on our stable population, the people that are going to be here, the people that are in our neighborhoods now. So that's something I would see as something for us to address. The other thing that we've seen over time is we've lost a lot of our after-school and youth activities. And you can see that from the research that we can see when we have those really robust, strong after-school activities, we have a lot less negative activities, crime is reduced, and different things like that. That's something that we've lost over the years. And I would say that another issue we have is people don't really want to live in our neighborhoods, which comes back to kind of our underwater mortgages. We aren't really seen as a destination to go, despite the things that people are trying to do to make things better. As someone who works at MSU, and I know that my colleagues feel kind of sorry for me being in Lansing when they see the lack of transparency in our political climate, they see the issues we're struggling with our schools and with crime, and we're out there every day trying to let people know Lansing is a great place to be. We do have some challenges, but that's one of those things that we fight with a perception. And lastly, I will say, yes, we have couches and mattresses that are a big issue for us. This ordinance has been fantastic. We now know that we can have the businesses clean up the situation if someone's dropping off the mattresses and couches at their donation bin. But it's really kind of onerous for those businesses to have to take care of that when it's our residents that are dropping things off. We need a comprehensive cleanup strategy that's not just for CDBG neighborhoods, not just once or twice a year, but a continued way for people to get rid of those things which are too big and too expensive for them to get rid of on their own when they're already struggling with their mortgage or their rent or these other things that are expensive. So that's something we need to work on together as well.
Okay. So,
If I
go
may
ahead.
just say one thing, it's on Melissa, what she brought. Lansing has a 50% rental. And if there was some way, they used to have an incentive that if you bought property in Lansing, that you would get a $5,000 credit, and you had to live in the home for 5 years. With so many rentals, and some of the owners of that property are absentee individuals that don't even know what's happening, nor are they concerned about what's happening other than collecting the rent. It would be great if we could come up with an idea on how to make it worth the while to have the risk, if we want to say that. But Lansing has, we've got the parks, we've got the river trails, we've got people that care about you, and there's just so much to offer. But we need to have some money and some ways to actually move forward. I know that Melissa's neighborhood, they do so much, and Betty's neighborhood, and they're paying it out of their own personal accounts. They're doing it, not only the time that the city has saved by what these individuals are dedicated to doing, but all the supplies and what they do just to bring their neighborhood up.
And I have to add to that to say that Michigan State University has been an incredible partner for us in helping us, along with our city departments of parks, which, because parks are so important to us.
Right.
The work that we've been able to do has been largely because of a lot of effort from MSU to come help and support us. And then they see what a great place this neighborhood is, and we hope that some of them will come back. And I will tell you that I'm one of those. I'm in Lansing because of that particular program. We chose to live in Lansing anyway, but that was also an additional reason that we were here. So that was something I think was valuable, and that's why I'm here.
Now, all three of you, I'm gonna shift because we have just sort of a limited time. All three of you mentioned code compliance and sort of issues with that and renters and rental properties. You know, City Pulse has done a lot of work looking at rental properties and the rental issues around it. Are we investing enough in the code compliance system to really do the job that needs to be done? Betty?
I think we are now. I think we're working towards that. Baker, of course, has a big problem with that, and we have landlords with multiple properties. We have a lot of our houses go on the, back to the county for unpaid taxes. I believe that once people make that conscious decision not to pay their taxes, and then it goes through that almost three-year period before foreclosure, they've also made the conscious decision not to do anything. So there's just further deterioration. But I really believe that the city is working to have proper staffing in code. However, they can only enforce, and I may or may not agree, they can only enforce what's there. My opinion is our city council, our leaders need to take a very, very close look at the code in this city and up the ante on this. It's been on the books for years.
Didn't we just go through an entire upgrade on the building and code compliance ordinance?
Did, but what did we change? You know, we need to force landlords and homeowners, just getting to the minimum, is that enough? Let's take it a step further, you know. All they're asked to do is meet the minimum code standards here.
Right.
And you can drive through any neighborhood in Lansing and you can pick out a rental house. And sometimes it's because of the railings that were installed. You know, you can almost pick them out as you drive by. You know, meeting the minimum may not really be enough.
Okay. Elaine, what do you think?
I think we need more code compliance officers. Last year at the city council, when they were reviewing the budget, we were asking, well, at that time, we asked for 7 more. But we were voted down on that, and they ended up hiring, I think, a half-time code compliance officers. There are so many inspections, and with the inspections, they do not have to go back and re-inspect if there's a violation. They just send a letter and say that they took care of it. I think that it's so important, especially in the rental properties, where disadvantaged people may be in a situation that they need to have somebody be their advocate. And they have, with this donation bins or containers, they don't have enough time with the grass, the inspection, the bins, the care of homes that are dangerous where kids are living, to cover it all. And I think that they need to hire more and push more energy towards making sure those violations are corrected.
Okay. Melissa, what's your take on code compliance?
I would agree with what they've also said as well, and I think if we look at maybe the East Lansing model, and there's a lot more teeth in their code compliance situation, we don't have a lot that we can do when we have a repeat offender
Right.
for a landlord. They can continue to own and buy more properties even if we have
And
violations behind
That's a
them.
very good point.
We really don't have a way to deal with that. The other situation, I think, in addition to having more code compliance officers and beefing up what our ordinances and the strength that we have of those ordinances, is that we don't have a good system right now for tracking what's happening. One of the tools that we use frequently in our neighborhood is writing the nuisance letter and letting people know that if you continue with the particular issues in this home, the problems that the people could be evicted if there happen to be renters. So it takes our neighborhood associations to track. We have to keep track of the police calls to a particular residence. We have to keep track of the code compliance calls. And then on our initiative, we can ask someone on our behalf to write that letter. When instead, if we had our databases connected, and as soon as a house met that threshold, we've had 5 calls for service on fights, we've had 3 calls for code compliance, or whatever the threshold is, for that to automatically generate that nuisance letter to say, we have an issue with this. And then I think as a community psychologist from that perspective, we have people that we're evicting, they have issues and they have problems, they're going to go somewhere else. We can't just keep kicking that problem to the curb. We have people and neighbors that need help and support and whatever it is that's getting into the negative situations there in that home. So increasing our social services for our vulnerable population in this community is also going to be important. So a really holistic approach for all of these problems, I think, is what we need.
And Melissa, I'll be very quick. I know over time. You made a very good point, and I have this in my neighborhood. If a landlord is not taking care of a property, they should not be able to purchase another home for rental. Take care of what you have and do it right. And we have many of them. I have many in my neighborhood owned by a few individuals, and they're all in disrepair. But they are allowed to continue to purchase homes. And I would disagree that they should.
You all talked about landlords, and we've got about 6 minutes left. Are landlords actually the problem, or is it an issue of reaching to landlords to say, we need you as a partner in this process?
I agree. I don't know that we've ever really had a communication line in reaching out to them. I think we have to start that. It is not okay what they're doing.
I would say that in our neighborhood, our code compliance officers have been very proactive in having those relationships and contacting the landlords, and they've done everything they can do. And we appreciate our good landlords. We appreciate those people that are responsive. And there's just that small number that are not. And no matter what we do, it doesn't seem to have an impact on that. So there's certainly more we can do for outreach in general, to let them know, if you could you could do better background checks. It's not that expensive. So let's make sure that you're doing these simple things you can do to ensure you have a good tenant. We can do more about that, but there are those that we've already tried, and I don't think there's much more we can do besides throwing the book at them.
They become a victim of their surroundings too. We can get into that whole scenario.
Well, explain that a little bit.
Well, you have the blight and the homes that are in disrepair. We have the spike in crime. We have the addictions to alcohol and drugs. And, I see this, especially with kids in my neighborhood. I can pull them out of their homes and have a party in the park. They're a whole different group of kids. They go back on their streets. They feel they have to act like what's around them in order to walk up and down the street. They just become a victim of this poverty.
They want to have an image, to keep the image in where they
I don't know that they want to have that image. They feel they have to for safety.
Right. Well, that's how where they feel they're comfortable. Something else that is off from code compliance is I'd like to see more community policing, where we have the police officer on the streets and around. Right now, I believe there's still 5 police officers that have positions, maybe more. But for quite a while, we had a lot of vacant positions. And there was an article about how much has been spent on overtime. And when a policeman officer has to just work all these extra hours and they're chasing from one call to another, they don't have time to get into the neighborhood to really meet the people and build the trust that they need. I know at Rejuvenating South Lansing, different times we hear a lot from senior citizens who have problems, but they're afraid to take it to the police or bring it out because they're afraid of the repercussions, or have been told that, you know, we know you live alone and we'll take care of you. And I think that police, community police officers are very important assets to neighborhoods.
Okay. So in the last 2.5 minutes, the question is, Mayor wants to do a block-by-block plan for each neighborhood in the city. Is it a good idea, and is it doable?
It may be doable. I don't know much about this or how it's funded or what he plans on doing. That's a huge mountain to climb. But it also needs to be, every one of our neighborhoods are different. So if he's going block by block, understand that my needs in Baker could be far different than
Right.
your needs.
Right.
Or Sycamore Park, which is just across Pennsylvania from me. Sure. We can't have, for lack of other words, a cookie cutter plan. It has to fit every block, every neighborhood. I think the intent is good of that, but I don't know yet. I haven't seen a plan or how we plan to do that or fund that, but it almost, you know, it sounds like what some of us are doing now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Elaine, what do you think?
I think that, just as Betty said, we've been doing a lot of this already in our
Right.
neighborhoods.
Right.
And we've been telling the mayor, and we've been telling the city council. And, you know, we had a situation on our street, a problem, and it took us 3 years to resolve it. We finally got it resolved, but that's only because our neighborhood was determined to take care of this problem. In a lot of neighborhoods, you don't have that dedication to stay in there with all the ridiculous things that you have to put through to protect your rights for 3 years.
Okay. Melissa?
I think a block strategy is, it's a good way to go, and from our research and community development, we know that blocks are important, but is it doable? I think without a very, very large sum of money to do it correctly, it would be difficult to do. And I don't believe the political will is there to do it in the correct manner. We have seen a great deal of top-down strategies. We've had outside consultants come in.
Right.
We've had a variety of things that have happened, and we've had our community has had a lot of failed outreach
Yes.
efforts. I don't know that I've seen anything that leads me to believe that our city can do in its current mode to do anything would be an effective outreach strategy that would get everybody at the table and to get the information that we need. Like I said, we've been
Okay.
doing this already.
I need to
Thank you.
wrap it up because we've got about 11 seconds. Thank you, Melissa Kwan-Huber from the Lansing Neighborhood. Thank you very much for Elaine Wambaut from Rejuvenating South Lansing and Betty Dreher from Baker Denora.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.